over there. Send the word over there.
Did you know that a doughboy isn't just the nickname for an American soldier in World War I? That it's also, in fact, the moniker of one of the hottest teams in the Appy League. That's why Let's Get To is out here to find the secret of the doughboy. But where do we go, Darius?
To Johnson City, Tennessee.
Thanks, Hootie.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball show from the fans' perspective. Now here's your host, James Christopher.
And welcome to Let's Get To. I'm your host, James Christopher, and we're coming to you from TVA Credit Union Ballpark, home of your Johnson City Doughboys. We're having a great time. We're having an awesome time in Johnson City. We're hanging out. We're seeing the sights. We're seeing the town. And we love everything about the branding behind the Doughboys. We were so excited when we saw the Appy League rebrand and get to adopt names that fit their community, fit their history. And the Doughboys really hits me where I live. Military veteran, history buff. So it's been kind of fun to really combine baseball with that other interest and get to learn a little bit about World War I, which frankly is a war that I don't really know all that much about. So it's been a blast. Now, speaking of educational, we have a great show coming for you today. We've got baseball guests from all over the levels of minor league baseball. Guys, the calendar is turning to August. There's not that much baseball left. We've got to get out to the ballpark if that's what you want to do. Like I said, great episode, so stick with us.
From the bleachers, the Let's Get To Game of the Week.
Earlier this year, when the Appy League teams rebranded, we watched like kids on Christmas, waiting for Baseball Santa to saunter on down and deliver some wonderful new baseball brands. And deliver he did. When the Johnson City Doughboys were revealed, we immediately put a trip onto our calendars. The brand is strong, reflective of the iconic Doughboys of World War I. I love the logo with the silhouette of the soldier, complete with the Brody helmet with its recognizable flat brim. Even the team store staff is getting into the Doughboy spirit. The clean uniforms with stenciled font really tie the look together. We were excited to get to TVA Credit Union Ballpark. It's been home to Johnson City baseball teams since the 1950s. It's a ballpark with tons of character, including a huge outfield wall that's at least 15 feet high and runs the entire ballpark. The Johnson City Monster, as it were. They do a great job of taking the older ballpark and packing it with lots of fun for fans on the concourse. You've got some of the most intimate seating options of any ballpark anywhere, where the Johnson City faithful hang on every pitch. There's a great selection of ice-cold beer. Just look at this pour. You got cornhole and Jenga, all in all, a great place to be. And hey, there's even funnel cake. A night at the Doughboys is more than beer and funnel cake, however. It's the place where young ball players learn the craft to develop their game. It's the place where ball players inspire the next generation.
Let's Get To in Austin, Texas. He's a 7-year Army veteran and the trainer of 2 Canadian Derby chapters.
It's a place where a guy with no athletic ability can throw out a first pitch, and I'm just glad I didn't bounce it. And it's a place where a guy, his playing days long behind him, can replay old glories in his head and remember all of those who share the game with him. It's baseball skies, it's action under the lights, and the distraction from the day-to-day grind. It's where this game, drowned in scandal and anxiety in the major league level, will continue to grow and it'll continue to flourish. It's baseball, it's pure, and it's the perfect place to spend a summer night.
Seventh inning stretch. A look at baseball's hometown.
Tennessee is an underrated destination with some of the most beautifully green vistas you've ever seen, dotted with some great, unique cities and towns primed for exploration. Johnson City is one such town, a city of 65,000 people in the home to Eastern Tennessee University. Our immediate interest was checking out the Spirit of the American Doughboy statue. It's a stunning rendering of a World War I era American soldier. Looking at it, it's hard not to hear the crackling sounds of "Over There" and see newsreel images of American troops in trenches fighting one of the bloodiest wars in human history, with the hope of ending all other war. Johnson City's dedication to our fallen heroes and our veterans doesn't stop with the Doughboy statue. From the Veterans Memorial that honors the fallen from all of our major wars, as well as the main branches of service, to the Mountain Home National Cemetery, the blood spilled to preserve our nation is ever present and remembered. The sight of these gravestones lined up next to each other will never not humble me. After exploring Johnson City, it was time to wet our whistle, and our first stop was the Yee Haw Brewery. They have a wide variety of local beer from which to choose. And look at this pour. They also have a great taco joint next door. Now, usually, I don't eat tacos outside of Texas because, why would you? But these tacos were amazing. Highly recommend the pork loin. We then stopped for a few beers at the just-opened Tennessee Hills Brewstillery. We can't wait to get back when this place is up and running. Johnson City isn't the biggest dot on the map, but what it offers in food, drink, and fun will make it a future stop on our next ballpark tour.
On deck, the Let's Get To interview. Brought to you by Marco Fine Arts.
So we're excited to continue talking about the Johnson City Doughboys and good friend of the show, Sydney Crumbley, who we met at the ballpark. Sydney, first of all, how's it going?
Great. It's going good. Season's over, so I'm excited about that, but we're kind of gearing into what we do in the fall, and school's about to be back in a couple weeks. So just transitioning out of the fast pace from the summer and slowing down a little bit.
Well, first of all, how long have you worked in baseball? Have you worked for the Doughboys or what they were before?
So this summer was actually my first summer working in baseball. I was supposed to work with the Johnson City Cardinals in 2020, and I was supposed to be their marketing and promotions intern, and COVID happened. So that whole season was canceled. So this year I reached out to the company, which I had some familiar faces that I knew throughout that company. So Boyd Sports, I reached out to them. I was like, hey, do you have any opportunities this year since you rebranded the team? So I came back on this year as head of marketing promotions as an intern this summer. But yeah, this was my first experience working in baseball, but that's what I've wanted to do for several years. So this definitely got my foot in the door this summer.
So how was it then? Because it really is breakneck, right? Like you're in and then it's nonstop and then it's over.
Yeah.
How was it just, first of all, being in the ballpark and then the transition now that you guys are started to slow down?
Yeah. So whenever I got there, I think I started on May 21st, started my internship, and it was crazy from the first day. Like it never stopped and I loved it. I did not expect this sport, which I've grown up around baseball my entire life, but I didn't expect working for this sport to be as fast paced as it is. And I'm 100 miles a minute. So I loved every second of that. From, I think opening day was June 3rd to August 6th. It was every single day, 9 a.m. to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just work. But I loved it. I mean, I was exhausted, but we're all catching up on sleep now. We have lots of events going on in the fall. We do travel ball tournaments every weekend. And then there's beer festivals, like there's a tot triathlon next week. People are doing concerts, I think they're talking about doing there, but a lot slower around there than it was this summer.
Yeah. And you talked about, growing up around baseball, but one of the things that I really noticed about being in Johnson City was the fan base is into it. Like it was pleasantly surprised how crowded it was, how into it was. We sat next to, her name's Elaine, and she's like in her 90s. Yeah, she was amazing. So is there any part of it that you learned about the game, like working at this level of it, that maybe you weren't ready for and that you kind of maybe grew to appreciate the baseball game a little bit more?
Which, like I said, my little brother has played baseball his whole life. He's 19 and still playing baseball. So I've learned how the game works. Couldn't tell you that about football, basketball, anything like that. Love baseball, love the sport. I think what I wasn't ready for is how many people were there and how into it they were, like you said. And I was like, what is going on? They loved it. It was great. I think the Johnson City fan base, they did not care what was going on the field. They just loved the atmosphere, which our team was super fun this year. They had a blast playing summer ball, which I thought Johnson City was going to have a hard time going from minor league to collegiate. And I didn't know what to expect because I'd been to a few Cardinals games in the past, and it was crazy. Like people are all about it and ready to watch these guys and hope that they go to the next level. So I was nervous that they would be kind of bummed that it was a collegiate league now, but I think they had just as much fun this summer. It was so fun to watch too.
How was it? Because you go from being the Cardinals, which is an established brand, an established look, and now you've got to sell the Doughboys, which, on our show, we track this stuff really, really heavily. And there were 3 teams that rebranded and that we really loved. And Johnson City was one of them. Actually, Greenville was another. And then the Cleburne Railroaders was another. But did you have to do a lot of explaining, or did people just jump into, this looks cool and I understand vaguely what it is, let's go?
Okay, so luckily that was my position, was marketing and promoting this new brand and getting Johnson City kind of, not that they wanted to leave their old Cardinals ways, but having them get used to the Doughboys being here now. So I have my story down pat for what to tell people, because people would come into the ball field, and I run all of our social media, and there's a lot of talk on social media. It was like, what in the world is a Doughboy? Why would you rename it this? And then after I learned the story about why they named this team the Doughboys and the history that comes from it and everything, I learned to love the name. Like, I think it's the coolest name in the Appy League for sure. But after people learn the story and why this team was rebranded the way that it was, they're like, okay, that's cool. I want to go to a Doughboys game. So it was awesome rebranding this summer.
Yeah, and I do think it's unique, and I think you're talking about small town and you're talking about baseball, but you're also talking about military service, all of those things, particularly in the South. I mean, I'm from Texas, so all of that kind of goes hand in hand. And then to sort of pick that sort of World War I identity, which you don't see a lot of, I thought just very clever move, and all the branding about that was perfect.
Well, thank you. I love it.
It was great. So you were telling me offline that you're getting ready to start your master's. So what is next for you? Like, where do you see yourself going in the sport?
Well, this summer really, like I said, put my foot in the door in this, career path. And I've always been the kind of person that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I changed my major 5 times in my undergrad. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was all over the place. I was like healthcare, dental, nutrition, all over the place. And then I was like, baseball, let's try it. So I got my bachelor's in marketing, and then I got a minor in sport management. And then I had thought about going to grad school throughout my undergrad experience, but I was like, maybe it's not for me. I don't love school, if we're being honest. Maybe this isn't for me. Well, there was talk throughout the summer with my GM, Kiva, about a graduate assistant position with the Doughboys. And I was like, okay, I love the Doughboys. I'm having a blast. I'm learning a lot. Maybe this is for me. So as of last Friday, I got accepted into grad school, and I'm actually going to go to orientation tonight after I get off the phone with you for new graduate students. So I'll do my master's. It'll be a 2-year program. And then after that, I'm hoping to stay with Boyd Sports. So I'll be with them for 2 more years at least. And then I really want to stay with them. I really like doing marketing and promotions like I did this summer. I honestly didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I did, but I loved every second of everything that I did this summer, and I just want to keep doing it in the future.
Well, we definitely want to keep following you. And I guess since you're going to be the marketing person, you got to be the one to come on next season and preview the season.
I'll be there.
All right. She is Sydney Crumbley. Thanks so much, Sydney, for jumping on Let's Get To You. And thanks for making Nathan and I feel so welcome out at the ballpark last month.
Absolutely. We were glad to have you.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9, brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
So we're super excited to welcome Let's Get To the media relations and broadcast manager for your Bowling Green Hot Rods, Shawn Murnin. Shawn, how's it going, man?
I'm great. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. It's I'm very excited to get it to be getting out there. We'll talk about that in a minute, but out there just a couple of weeks. But before we jump into this, talk to me a little bit about you. How did you end up going from, I presume, a kid who liked baseball to being the voice of a pretty prominent minor league baseball team?
A lot of luck and a deep enough voice, I guess. I grew up like everybody else, playing, just loving baseball, collecting cards, and wasn't really good enough to hack it in college. So that never really happened. I don't know. I wanted to be a beat writer at first, and then when I went to my 4-year school after my associate's degree, they're like, "Hey, you got a really deep voice, and I don't know if you want to be an English major or not." And I had no interest in that, so just kind of ran into the radio thing, and I was lucky enough to get an internship in Scranton Wilkes-Barre with the then Yankees. Obviously, they've rebranded now, but that it was weird. I was out of baseball for a while. It was like 3-4 years, and then went to a collegiate summer wooden bat league and got lucky from there.
You do have an incredibly deep voice. You definitely should moonlight as like you could do like a Boys to Men thing, and you could be the guy that's like, "I know, baby, I'm really sorry." No, but growing up, baseball, they say, right, it's the only game you can see on the radio. Who were some voices that you really kind of connected with and thought that's how you should call a baseball game?
Yeah, growing up in northeastern Pennsylvania, we constantly, like, when I would be sent to bed and I wouldn't want to go, I'd be able to listen to Harry Callis do the Phillies games. And man, I always tell people when they're like, "Oh, usually it's Vin Scully or something like that." For me, Harry Callis, as he got older and those Phillies teams were in the playoffs and then the World Series, for some reason, to me, it was like the game kind of slowed down to him as he got older and wasn't as energetic and fast and things like that. So, Harry was just, I always thought he was unbelievable at making you feel like you were there with him, not just there seeing the game.
That's awesome. It's fun because I'm a big Astros fan, and so his son, is the TV play-by-play voice. So I always love it when people bring up his dad. So talk to me a little bit about, you've devoted a large chunk of your life to this game. We got to ask about 2020. Just what was that like for you personally, but also for the Bowling Green Club? And I'll say this with the preface that you guys did a great job on social media that year of at least making it feel like, at least trying to bring some normalcy when I know you're also a small business dealing with that thing. So what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, it was really weird because you went from gearing up and getting ready for a season, and we were supposed to host the All-Star game last year for the Midwest League. So we had all of these, all the promotional materials and all this merchandise coming in and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden the world comes to a screeching halt because of this, this awful, awful virus. And we all, for the most part, worked from home. There was, in our particular neck of the woods, it was the mandatory staff only. So guys like our general manager, Eric Leach, our assistant general manager, Kyle Wolves, our operations person who had to make sure, the place wasn't burning down. They were allowed in the ballpark. The rest of us worked from home. So for me personally, we developed a podcast. We ended up posting on our blog a lot more things of historical value, things of, maybe the more feature, I guess, driven type of stuff.
Right.
We started doing Twitch streams last year. So we put, a lot of us really worked in a lot of different ways. As far as social media goes, we really tried to be more involved in the community. So we were doing things like the wave parades where we would go out and people in the area would nominate neighborhoods, and then we would all jump into our vehicles and, wear our hot rods gear and get our flags and, just drive through a neighborhood acting like belligerent, crazy people, honking horns and waving. And kids and families were coming out on their front lawns and waving, and we had the mascots with us. And it was one, really nice to get out of my apartment, and two, really nice to, see the community and all of our fans and stuff that, we were all estranged at that point. We were all separated. So, that portion was really weird. And then, when June hit and we finally knew that there was no season, I went back to Minnesota because I'm a seasonal employee. So, I'm the full-time seasonal radio broadcaster. And so when the season's over, I go back to my wife, and now we have a son. And I'll be honest with you, I pretty much unplugged from baseball until the postseason and played like 150 rounds of golf. So that was kind of my extent of 2020. But I mean, I can't say enough about our social team and our marketing people and really everybody in the office, because everybody pitched in as far as ballpark maintenance when they were allowed to get back, and painting and doing all that stuff. But it was wild.
Wild. But when you talk about the parade stuff, that to me is minor league baseball in a nutshell. It is a product and a member of that community. And again, so then you get back to 2021. I'm assuming in Kentucky, just like us in Texas, things sort of opened up a little. Like we went from zero, like half capacity, to full capacity within a matter of weeks. How was that for you guys, and what was it like just emotionally to get back to the ballpark?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit slower. Kentucky has a Democratic governor right now, so they were a little bit more, hey, 25%, let's wait a little while, 50%, let's wait a little while. I think it kind of moved that way until we were finally up to 100%, I think a month or a month and a half into the season.
Okay.
But it was weird at first because we did some of the cardboard cutouts behind home plate. And there were, we were doing tickets in pods to start the season. So you had a group of people sitting together, and that's where they sat. Obviously masks in the ballpark and all of those Major League Baseball mandates and everything like that. And then on top of that, the team couldn't really have any contact with them, save a couple people in the ballpark. So, I mean, it was, to start the season, it was completely different. The only thing that was recognizable to me was the product on the field, the baseball. And by the way, which is really good this year here, in case anybody wanted to know that. But it was weird getting back to it. And then as things started to go, it started, once more people started to be able to be in the ballpark, it was a lot more familiar. And even now, we're at 100% capacity. We've had, I think we've had 2 sellouts this year. People are still, and rightfully so, the people are still hesitant. But as things go, we're starting to see more and more people come to the ballpark, and it's really awesome. It's nice for me. I have a broadcast partner at home, my intern. And so when he takes over in the middle innings, I get to, get up and walk around, which is not something like here in Greensboro. I'll be tethered to the desk for 5 hours.
Yeah.
But at home, I like to get up and walk around, especially on busy nights, because that's something that we don't get to see in the broadcast booth. And so I like to go down, and our season ticket holders are down there, and you get to stop and talk to them and see them and stuff. It's really nice to have all of that back.
Just sort of a general question. Does Turbo, let's talk about Turbo for a second. Now, he doesn't have an ego, does he? Like, is he still pretty humble, even though he's pretty internet famous now?
Yeah, he is. I believe that the internet calls it the goodest boy.
Yes.
So you can still come in and find Turbo, hair all over the place. He's not particularly a guy that will, he doesn't go to one particular place every day to get groomed. Still doing it in the office.
Good.
Hangs out on the leather couches, and still likes to get dirty. Still goes out there and retrieves bats and things like that. So he hasn't quite big leagued us yet. Nobody knows what the future holds, but
who knows?
He's still doing his thing.
No, I think that's one of my favorite parts of minor league baseball is the rise of the bat dog. I'm trying to trade my German Shepherd, who we gave Turbo as her middle name, but we're working on it. But I'm excited to get up there. I've been wanting to get up there for a long time, since we started our show, and we're going to be shooting our Halloween episode on y'all's Halloween night. I plan on winning a jersey. I already told my wife, don't look at the credit card. We're going in to win. Okay. But whose brainchild was that? Because you see everything in minor league baseball, and it kind of runs the gamut across teams. Christmas in July, Star Wars night. You don't see a lot of sort of, let's get ready for Halloween stuff. I mean, where did that come from, and what are y'all looking forward to about the night?
Yeah, I think that's just our staff does a really good job of collaborating with things. So, between Eric, our general manager, Kyle, our AGM, Holly is in charge of our marketing and promotions. Leslie Martin is in charge of a lot of our promotional stuff. They've been around, especially Eric and Kyle have been around for a long time. Kyle has pretty much only worked in Bowling Green, and Eric has been around minor league baseball for over 20 years, maybe even close to 30. He's old. But I mean, they are trying constantly to come up with new things. And I think that the weird thing is in minor league baseball, we see a lot of the retread stuff. Everybody does a Margaritaville night. Everybody does, kind of the same things. And so I think you can't really do a whole bunch of new stuff all at once because then it becomes unfamiliar. But I think our team does a really good job of trying to pick out specific nights, like Unicorn Night we did a couple of years ago. It was a huge hit. Stranger Things, we did a bunch of Stranger Things stuff. We actually had specialty jerseys for that this year. But I think that's even with the Halloween stuff, especially with, you can't forget the season's going longer now than it ever has as far as deep into the year. And so, whereas you might catch the tail end of the season would be the first week of September, we're like 3 weeks deep into September, even further if you make the ones, basically the championship series. So I think that all fed into it, and the jerseys look really cool too.
You can see I call this Studio B because I'm in my classroom. But I am a massive collector, and I really did. When I saw them, I tweeted at you guys tweeted back, and I was like, it's on. I have a number in my head. So I'm not telling the world what the number is, but I have a number, and we're going to be okay with that. But, it's funny because minor league baseball, I think, is always on the cusp of fan interaction. They are forward thinking. What do you say maybe an old fuddy-duddy baseball player who doesn't understand? I don't know why we need Halloween night, or why do we need Princess Night? The game is enough. What would you say to them as far as why it is important that we have these sort of extra things?
I think I'm two-sided on that. I think I would start by saying to them, I appreciate where you're coming from, because as somebody who loves baseball, I agree in a lot of cases the game should be enough. But on the other side of the coin, we're still looking to grow the game of baseball. And that means that you need to appeal to a wider group and a wider audience. And not only that, but the people that you want to grow baseball with are, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're children. And children don't like to sit still for 3 hours.
No.
And children can't drive themselves to the ballpark and feed, you know what I mean? Like I have a 4-month-old, he can't even feed himself. But if I have my way, he'll be a baseball fan. So yes, come to the ballpark, watch the game, talk about the game, keep score, buy the baseball cards, get the jersey. You know what I mean? Like, yes, be a traditional baseball fan. That's great. Why does it bother you that they're going to wear different jerseys? And that, to me, it's just, that's one of those things. If we're not changing the stuff on the field that the hardcore baseball fan loves, and we're not changing that.
Yep.
That's way above any of our pay grades. Why is it that big of a deal? It shouldn't be. It's fun. Have fun. That's what baseball is supposed to be about. It's a game. It's honestly a game. Like, trust me, I watch it every single day. It just comes down to a game. These guys are laughing and having fun with it.
I think it's a great answer. Shawn, I cannot wait to get out to Bowling Green to meet you in person. He is Shawn Murnin, voice of your Bowling Green hot dogs, hot rods. Good luck. Yeah.
Hey, that's a new promo right there. Book it.
Now all of a sudden I'm like a staff member, the hot rods, but good luck on the rest of the road, man, and have a safe trip back home.
Thanks. I appreciate it. We're looking forward to having you out.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9, brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
So we're excited to welcome Let's Get To Tim Grubbs. He's the voice of your Wichita Wind Surge. First of all, Tim, I see that you're on the road. Where are we this week?
I am in Springfield, Missouri. So beautiful overcast morning right now when you and I are talking. The hotel here in Springfield is just a block or two from the ballpark. So that's very convenient.
So will you stroll over there and kind of just saunter over, or will you do a whole team bus situation?
So they actually offer the team bus, but I would say most of us just kind of walk over there. It's too easy not to. So I'll just be walking over there shortly after lunch, walk around downtown a little bit, grab something to eat a little bit later, and then head over to the ballpark.
I'm sorry, you're just living my best life. I love it. Tell me a little bit about you. How did you go from, I presume, a kid who liked baseball to being the voice of a Double-A baseball team?
I kind of knew early that I think there's a when I was playing Little League baseball, I was never that great. You know what I mean? I was good for a little while, decent, I should say, but I knew my chances of being a professional baseball player were pretty slim. And I remember, playing like wiffle ball in the backyard, and I would actually do the play-by-play while I was pitching the ball or doing whatever. And I spent a lot of time at my parents' backyard, with a rubber baseball, pitching against the side of the house, and I would do the play-by-play and all that stuff. And I remember that as early as maybe 10 or 11 years old. Wow. So obviously, as I got a little bit older and stopped playing sports because I just wasn't big enough and wasn't fast enough and enough to keep up, I started doing sports in high school. I was very fortunate that our high school had a club where we would do the games. And they would record them on back then VHS tapes, and they would air them on public TV. So I could get I was broadcasting high school football games, high school basketball games, guys and girls. And I did a little bit of hockey, did some wrestling, all in high school as early as a sophomore in high school. So it was a great start to, what ultimately it meant was my career.
You really have been doing this all your life.
I pretty much have.
Yeah.
The first time that you would have heard my voice on, like I mentioned, cable access television would have been when I was like 16 years old. I think I was either 15 or 16, because I remember I did not have my driver's license yet and had to have my mom drive me to, the stadium to do a scrimmage, a high school football scrimmage. And then, part of that club, you learned how to be a camera guy. You learned how to be the analyst. You learned how to work in the truck. It was pretty basic back then. It's not what you see. I say the truck, but it's not exactly what we're talking about nowadays. This was 1989 that I was, started to do this stuff. So, but yeah, and then I went to college for it. And then ultimately, right out of college, got a job with the Hickory Crawdads. And this is my 26th season of broadcasting minor league baseball.
When I was 15, I still wanted to be Batman. So I love the fact that you figured this out early, because that's awesome. Growing up then, for me, I'm a Houston kid. The voice of my childhood is Milo Hamilton, the iconic Astros. Who was your guy? Who was the person that you heard and you thought that's how it should sound?
It's funny. Milo Hamilton was the voice of the Pirates when I was really young. I don't remember his voice, but yeah. I mean, obviously I remember hearing his voice with highlights as I was growing up, because he called, when the Pirates won a World Series. And then I got to meet Milo when I was with New Orleans as an Astros affiliate. So it was kind of a dream come true that it came full force. My two favorites growing up was the voice of the Pirates, Lanny Fratteri, who I think he did the Pirates for close to 20 years. His voice was so smoothing to me and so comfortable. I really enjoyed him. He retired a while ago, but it was great having him. And then, obviously Myron Cope, the famous Steelers broadcaster, the man that invented the terrible towel. He probably was there. And then Bob Prince was on the tail end of his career when I was probably, around 12 and 13 years old. So he had a little bit of an influence as well with his crazy suit coats and all of his little sayings. By that point, I think he had been fired by the Pirates or in the process of it. But, his voice was around so much that I think he had a little bit of an influence. But I would go with Lanny and Myron as the two guys that, definitely had major influences on what I say on the air and how I act.
I love that. So you're working for the Wind Surge now. And for those who don't know, basically it was the San Antonio Missions, moved to Wichita, that organization, and then AAA, COVID happens, AA. When did you kind of become associated with the Wind Surge when all that happened?
Well, it wasn't San Antonio, it was New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans. San Antonio became...
Yeah. San Antonio became Amarillo. You're good. There's the San Antonio thing.
There's a lot going on, Tim. We have a lot going on.
Colorado Springs moved to San Antonio. San Antonio moved to Amarillo. Helena moved to Colorado.
Check.
That was a whole mess. So I have been. My started with New Orleans in 2002.
You're coming from New Orleans to Wichita straight through.
Straight through.
Then talk to me a little bit about the COVID year. So you guys move, the rebrand happens. People are excited about the rebrand. I ran into some of the ownership for the Wind Surge at the winter meetings in 2019. Everyone's jacked. Then the world pauses. What was that like for you guys who had built this brand and were kind of delayed in unveiling it?
It kind of happened, two things. I remember sitting at home on March 13th, if I'm correct, the day that we all got the text message that the Oklahoma City Thunder game didn't happen.
The day before I was supposed to fly to Astro spring training for the first time in my life. Yeah, I definitely remember that day.
Yeah. So I came home from the ballpark that day. I came home from the trailer. I worked in a trailer back then. The ballpark was maybe 85, 90% finished at that point, probably 90% finished at that point, but there was still a lot of things that weren't done, including our administrative offices. So I was still working in the trailer, and I remember coming home that night and that text message come across, and I remember saying to my wife, I was like, I think our season's going to get delayed. And I remember thinking, this might not be that bad. Even though the ballpark was going to be done, and anybody that's ever opened a ballpark before knows when you open a ballpark, especially in a short order like that stadium was constructed. I mean, the stadium was constructed in 14 months. We knew when that opening day was going to happen, there wasn't going to be 100% done. It might have been done for fans, but we knew that underneath, where the players are and all that stuff, there was going to be some unfinished business. So I remember thinking this might not be that bad if we get delayed a month. That'll give us a little bit more time to actually move into the ballpark and get settled in and stuff. Obviously, I got to the ballpark the next day and it was still work as usual. And then it was 2 days later or another day later that they actually said, we're going to put everything on pause. It was. And then all of a sudden, it's a couple of weeks later when you realize this is more than just, about 2 weeks later, it was more than, we're not going to open on April 11th. I initially thought, we'll open on April 25th or May 1st. But then all of a sudden it was like, all right, we're open maybe June 1st. And, as more and more, and it didn't take long for it to be like a little pause that you knew that this was going to be a major problem. And it was a real gut punch, after having, worked in New Orleans for 17 seasons. And that final year and a half in New Orleans, knowing that I was going to be a part of something really special and opening a brand new ballpark in Wichita and bringing AAA baseball to Wichita, Kansas. And now all of a sudden, that it might be delayed a full year. It was definitely frustrating for the whole approach, because we were so excited about opening that ballpark in such quick fashion in 14 months.
Well, the ballpark did get to open. 2021 happens. I know you probably started diminished capacity. I'm assuming you're near full capacity now, but what was it like to finally get that thing open and get fans inside?
Well, not only did the Wind Surge, and I know you met some of our ownership, but the Wind Surge took, not only did COVID take away a season, it took away our owner, our leader, the gentleman that owned the ball club, that moved the team from New Orleans, the man that had the vision of Riverfront Stadium being on the banks of the Arkansas River, the front porch to the community. He passed of COVID complications last July. So not only within the season got canceled, I think last year on the 1st of July, he'd passed away in late July. It was really, really, last summer was, it just was one hit after another. And then finally, when we got back to planning and they actually gave us a schedule, and we found out not only we were not going to be AAA, we were going to be AA, which I think in a lot of ways was a blessing. I know some people in Wichita may not think that, but I think it's great. I mean, I've really enjoyed this season of AA baseball. And when people say the prospects are at this level, I've been in AAA for a long time. They're not joking. I mean, there's definitely some truthfulness to that. And there's also AA baseball's younger guys, you know what I mean? And they bring a lot more energy. AAA, obviously, it's a lot more names that guys that have been to the big leagues and back. So I've really enjoyed being around a lot more of the youthful exuberance and just the guys that, haven't been jaded by the business of baseball yet. But, when we opened up the ballpark, it was unbelievable. Obviously, we we were almost at full capacity. So it did have a great atmosphere. Obviously, we had all the buffer zones, and we did have some areas where it was every other row and different things like that. But we couldn't do the huge celebration, where you have all the first pitches on the field. Our first pitch was the mayor that brought baseball to Wichita, the one that approved everything, and it had to be done on video a week before the game started, so it's up on the scoreboard, and they did a great job of doing it. And they had the catcher there catch the ball and do the whole presentation. But the fact that it wasn't done live, for an opening of the ballpark and all the pageantry that you would normally do to open a stadium, it was a little disappointing, but I should say a little disappointing. I mean, it was still very exciting to finally be sitting in my broadcast booth, something that I had seen from groundbreaking to when it was just a shell. I mean, I was going up there like every 2 weeks or so, and I have pictures of the progress of the whole ballpark, but really of the booth, of like, all right, this is where I'm going to be sitting calling all these games. Just finally being in the booth to sit there and put those headsets on and to hear the national anthem. And we had a moment of silence for Lou. We had a tribute video. And when that first pitch, during that, I thought I was going to be fine. Because I'm just a baseball guy and I was excited. But during the national anthem, it got a little emotional. It kind of surprised me that, I had that. And I think it's because I wasn't talking, you know what I mean? And you're just standing there and there's that moment of silence and there's nothing going on. You're no longer looking at your stat sheet, and it was just like, we're really at this point. We're really here. And that's when I teared up a little bit. And then, you kind of just had to be like, okay, put the headsets back on as soon as that anthem wrapped up. And we're like, here we go. We're ready to throw the first pitch. It was awesome. It was everything, good things come to those that wait, where the sayings go. But it was an incredible feeling and it was an incredible night. And it's, been an incredible season. And the fans of Wichita have made this really special this season.
That's what I wanted to ask. Like, how into it are the fans now? Like, is it their team now? Is that ballpark their ballpark? Are we already at that level where it feels like home to them?
It is. I think so. I think the fans that were coming out, I mean, a lot of people had some issues with tearing down a stadium that had been in their youth. Lawrence Dumont is built in the same spot, essentially the same spot, not exactly, a little bit of a different, footprint, but it opened in 1934. So there was a lot of sentimental feelings about the old yard and a lot of people thinking that place was still usable. And now all of a sudden they tore it down and built this grand, awesome stadium. And now I think 99% of the people that have stepped foot in there since it's open realize like, wow, this is great. You still have the beautiful skyline of downtown Wichita, and you've got the same, ballpark essentially that was there, but with all these other bonuses. The fans are into it. It's crazy. We had an experience a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people in Kansas are Royals fans for obvious reasons, but I'm really surprised how many Cardinal fans out there and how many other teams are represented. But when the Cardinals AA affiliate came in, they were cheering for the Bobby Witts and the Nick Prados, the top two prospects for them. But you could tell they were still rooting for Wind Surge. When we were doing something, and even though we're Twins prospects, they were rooting for us. They were rooting for those individuals, but they were rooting for us. And it was crazy seeing people wearing blue and wearing a Royals cap, but cheering for Jose Miranda and cheering for our players, throughout the ball game. So it was an exciting time. And I think our fans are converted, and it's been an exciting summer, and hopefully we continue to win.
Well, speaking of exciting, Tim, we are going to be up there on September 11th. Check the ballpark out. Can't wait. So stoked. Thanks so much for taking some time on the road and jumping on Let's Get To.
Hey, no problem. I really enjoy all the hats and everything you guys had in the background. I remember seeing a few of those, including that Round Rock Express jersey. It was one of my favorites. So it's a good, place that you got behind.
This is Studio B. I got to send you pictures of my setup at home. This is what I do between classes. I run a film department. This is just Studio B, Tim. I'll get you some stuff. You'll see some stuff.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
That wraps up this episode of Let's Get To. We had a great time at Johnson City watching the Doughboys. It was awesome. Doughboys came 1 run short, almost had a miracle comeback in the 9th. Everything you look for in a baseball game. One of the best parts for us was getting to meet Elaine Kramer. Elaine has been a fan of the Johnson City baseball team since the mid-'70s. She's been coming to this ballpark since 1976. It was awesome to get to talk to her. She helped Nathan and I understand the history of this ballpark, this ball team, and really getting to be involved in the culture. And it proved to us this is the game that you're introduced to when you're a kid and it stays with you through your life. Again, awesome, refreshing. And so I wanted to leave you guys with a little bit of positivity. Here is Miss Elaine singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
All right, fans, it's time to stretch. Everybody up for our 7-minute stretch. Now let's go down to Miss Elaine with "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Find me some peanuts and crackers, yeah. I don't care if I ever get back, so let's root for the Doughboys. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
So again, that does wrap up this episode of Let's Get To. Thank you to Kiva and the folks behind the Johnson City Doughboys for helping us out, welcoming us with open arms. Get out to a ball game. Be like Elaine. Get into it. Get you some peanuts. Get you some Cracker Jack. But most importantly, let's get to.